Today, we have a very special guest from Florida in the United States who is an indie author. As some of you know, I'm also an author, and today's author is someone I was speaking to recently who uses indie music as inspiration for some of her stories and characters. May I introduce to you Jae Greyn? Welcome, Jay.
Hi, thanks to be here.
Thanks for making the time. Jay is the author of several books, and I recently read one of the most amazing stories that could be a video game. So if you are out there and are a video game maker, I highly recommend The Felidae Clan. She's also the author of the Fire Ridge Pride series, Thorns Brew, and the Graham series. Jay, as an advocate for being good to animals, and of course people, what would you define as a good human other than those?
Good Lord. We're going to start with that question.
Yes, we are.
Um,
I told
okay.
you I was a little unpredictable. You know me, but
Yeah, that's unpredictable. Let's see. Being a good human is respecting people's boundaries, and if you say you're going to do something, do it. And if you can't, be honest and say you can't. Thinking outside the box and understanding that just because you think things are one way doesn't mean that there aren't other ways to do something or to say something or to be. Accept people for who they are.
excellent answer. Excellent. Jay and I also have something in common. We love chocolate. Now I'm a fan of dark chocolate. How about you?
I like milk chocolate.
Well, you're pretty sweet as it is. I've known Jay for a few years. In fact, there was a time when I was doing a newsletter to cross-promote other authors, and Jay is the very first author I wrote about. Because when I started to read the Fire Ridge series, I was immediately taken by the very first chapter. And the other day we were talking about how music, indie music, inspires some of her characters. Can you give us an example of that, Jay?
Do you mean a band or do you just mean in general?
In general, an indie artist, a band, a soloist.
Well, usually it's weird because I'll find most of the indie artists scrolling through Facebook, doom scrolling very bad, but I do that and I find some of the most amazing indie artists with rhythm and soul. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. And then it gives me an image when I'm listening to it. And then a scene starts to take place, and I know which character is really jiving with this music. So that's how that works.
That is awesome. And I'm sure that that is an inspiration to many of our indie musicians out there, because a lot of people would normally think that we'd kind of run to something that's mainstream and popular. I'm hoping that my newsletter, which we've ended the Count Lancellotti, he's been put to rest. I'm hoping that the newsletter sort of inspired others to look at not only your work, but to also feel that maybe someday one of their songs will inspire you. Because I remember us talking about you started listening more often to indie artists after I started to talk about that.
Yeah, because it was like, oh, there are indie artists out there. It's not just the mainstream. I'm not stuck with mumble rap because I listen to everything. And it doesn't matter how old or new the song is. If it strikes a chord in me, I'll listen to it. I'll add it to my playlist.
That is awesome. I hope I'm on your playlist, but I won't corner you on that one. I'm still relatively new, as you well know, to recording with digital audio workstations, also known as the DAWs. I've actually worked with people I've never even met with this technology we have nowadays. Now, I've noticed something in the difference between indie authors and indie musicians. I've noticed that most authors unlike you, because I know you have read some of my work, most authors usually are not as community oriented like yourself. You are very community oriented. You do a lot of work with trying to build other authors to work together. I've noticed a lot of authors usually just want to know what you're doing so they know the competition because you've never heard of an author opening for another author at a bookstore. But musicians, yes, we do open for other musicians in a concert setting. Do you attend many concerts?
Not lately. I'm not really a concert person. Now I have been to the House of Blues here in Orlando. That's about as big of a venue as I can handle. I got to know where the bathroom is and I got to know where the exit is. And I don't want to be boxed in with all these people that I don't know. That's the hard part about being an author is that most of us are introverted. We don't like being around a lot of people all the time. And I think my very first concert actually was at the House of Blues. So
Really? Who'd you see?
yeah,
Who did you see?
uh,
Or am I asking you to go way back into memory that's from a past life?
well, I can see it in my head, but I cannot remember because it wasn't the. He was one of those. He or it. I don't know if it was a band or if it was just him. They were doing covers. They were a cover
Oh.
for. I can't think of the name of it.
One of the first concerts I saw at the House of Blues here in LA was Peter Murphy, who was the lead
Oh,
singer for Bauhaus.
I love Peter Murphy.
Oh, he is so awesome. He's on one of my playlists that's generating right now in Spotify. In fact, I interviewed a band recently, Birthright from England, and one of them went to school with the drummer for Bauhaus. But Bauhaus, as you know, went in the direction of goth. This band,
Hmm.
Birthright, went in the direction of punk. And in fact, I did a little bit of a retrospective on them on my last episode because I interviewed Kathleen Turner Overdrive from
I saw that
Australia.
one.
Oh, great. Thank you.
She's really cool.
Thank you. So yeah, so as you know that this is a an international show and people I'm
Hmm.
hoping are going to hear about you and take a look at your work because she is an excellent writer. And if you like First Person Limited, that
Deep
is the person.
POV. Deep
Huh?
deep POV. You got to
Deep.
be in the character's head now. If you
Right.
don't want to be in the character's head, then no. But if you're okay
That's
with that, then yeah.
and that's what I found fascinating when we were talking the other day about how you've incorporated these narratives in the characters' thoughts on how indie music or music in general
Hmm.
inspires your characters. And I also believe if you wouldn't mind going into how these characters speak to you, because when I'm writing, I usually write in third person omniscient, and
Yeah.
it's a very different thought process. So could you explain a little bit more on the deep POV and how these characters speak to you and how all of a sudden music comes into the picture?
Usually it starts with music because I wander around with my headphones on pretty much all the time unless I absolutely have to communicate with other people. So I'm always listening to music. And if I'm stuck, or if I have a scene that I need to write, the characters just start, oh, I like that song. And then suddenly they're forefront, and I am watching their moment in time. Because for me, music brings up sights, sounds, smells, touching. It gets all five senses in there because I listen to so much music and so many genres that I pretty much have a memory for each song. And it can put me into a feeling of being right back in 1989, going to Soundside, and we're all dancing on the dance floor, that sort of thing. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I find it fascinating that, like I said earlier, I can't believe my own writing style has never incorporated any of my characters listening to a song or having an animal. I thought about that too. It's like I used to have cats all the time, and I don't know why I don't have anyone who has an animal in my story or anyone who listens to music other than my memoir, which of course I talk about the three bands that I was in, in another past life.
Yeah. And
So
because you like the Feladay clan, Raven likes to add Bach or Beethoven into his solos when he is doing, you remember that, right?
I do now, yes.
Right. So he does his guitar solos and he likes to add the classical music in for his guitar solos.
Is there any particular genre in your work that you are most often inspired by? Classical, rock, jazz, punk?
Well, it's usually rock. It also depends on the scene.
Right now, and I'm going to with his brother Scott, and that Raven will add something to he'll be listening to something like Bach, and all of a sudden he'll start to think of a riff on a guitar that he'll add to it.
And he'll
Since they are gods and they are immortal and they've been around for quite some time and had a long time to think about these things. In the Feladay clan, which I read from cover to cover, all of the books, there's two characters, Scott and Raven, who are twins and they are immortals. And the basic premise for the audience is that they are immortals having a war with vampires, and they are not your typical vampires either. If there is something I can say about Jay's writing is that she is not typical. That's why I was very attracted to it. And that's why, as many of you know who I've interviewed already, I don't usually go for the mainstream type of anything, whether it's indie or pop. Now, Jay, say for example, Raven is listening to Bach and comes up with his own riff. How does that pop into your head like that?
Okay, well, that's sort of complicated because you remember they have the colors who are their sight, their sound,
There's
their
also
hearing,
there's also counting spaces, which
which
means
is teleportation.
it took me a
So,
while to get that one.
right. Well, like when Raven, his favorite time of day is sunrise, and he wants that good cup of coffee and he wants to sit and watch the sunrise, and the colors will play Vivaldi's Magnificat. So this is how he comes up with there are songs that he associates with his emotions. And when he's on stage, because they DJ, they've done bands, they've done all sorts of things, he will always add that piece, whatever his is, however he feels at the moment, whatever piece represents that emotion is what he puts in his guitar solo because he plays guitar.
Do you play an instrument?
I have played guitar, piano, clarinet, drums. I think that's it. Oh, and the bells.
Boy, you are a jack of all trades.
Yes.
Ever consider recording professionally?
No,
No.
no,
Writing
no.
is your thing because every time we
Yes.
have spoken in the past few years, you're writing something new.
Well, I
And
can sing too, you know that, but I don't do that either.
I also noticed just now that you are taking a sip of either coffee or tea, and I think you're a fan of coffee. I'm a fan of tea. So thank you for doing that on Indie Tea with your host, me. Oh God, we're not going to do that again. So yeah, I dropped that whole intro. It was a bit
We'll
long.
see that.
And I also bought a clock once when I was interviewing Phil Cook and the Fall Dogs. He was helping me figure out how to put all of these episodes not just on YouTube but on Spotify. And he said, "Tea time." And I said,
Oh,
"Oh."
that's cool.
So I got a clock that has
Yeah.
tea time on it.
Yep.
That's for you, Phil. If you're watching this episode, I just thought it was adorable. I saw it at Target, and I thought, there's my clock. Tea time.
Well, you also know that Fire Ridge Pride has band.
Fire Ridge Pride. I honestly have to admit, I didn't read all of it.
That's fine.
You had given me the audiobooks. So
Hmm.
I was listening to the audiobooks.
Is a portion of Lou that I recorded myself on my YouTube channel. It's probably easier to understand me reading it, even though I'm a girl, but and I don't want to do audio narration, but I
Really,
did read.
that's something you inspired me to start doing when you said that I had a great voice. I'm reading my own books right now, audiobook for
Hmm.
ACX on Amazon, and maybe someday we will work together. I haven't worked directly with other authors for a while due to an event we won't talk about, but I'm sure that's going to have people wondering what event was that. I'm just going to say two words, South America. Using ACX, I have found more parts of myself that I didn't even realize I had. A long time ago, I did voiceover work for the advertising industry, and I hadn't done it since. But recently, I don't know if you heard my most recent release called The Shattered Crown, which was a
Yeah,
combination. Oh, you had? Thank you. That's a combination of David Bowie's Glass Spider Tour from 1988 with Emily Armstrong and Mike Shinoda's from Linkin Park, their version of Heavy is the Crown, and I called it The Shattered Crown. And when I was doing the narration myself, I know he's going to probably, well, maybe he'll smile, but my good friend Aaron Leet, who has been teaching me how to use the DAWs, I'm always mentioning him in some portion of my episodes. He is amazing when he was teaching me how to do, using a limiter when a song is really loud versus soft. And I had a little bit of a heads up on how to do some of it because when reading for ACX, I use Audacity, which is a program that ACX itself gives you a plugin to make sure all your levels are correct. I won't go into the technical terms because I know that that's not your thing, but it is a really good tool to measure, even when you make a mistake. And I think I've also encouraged you, because I like your voice, to read your own. And you were saying women are not usually accepted so much in the ACX world. Can you tell us why you feel that way?
because I write MM. And for me personally, I don't think I would be accepted. I'm not so sure that other people aren't, but from my personal experience, I don't think I would be accepted reading my books. And my narrator, he does a pretty good job, so I can't knock him. Yeah, I don't think that they would accept me reading
Men
my
on
family.
men romance.
Yeah.
Well, your stuff though also seems to jump into the supernatural as well. So it's not just really straight up MM romance. This is what I mean, when I read the Faraday Clan and what I meant when I said to, this is for the audience, what I meant when I said that this would make a great video game, it is written as a video game when these characters have to go from level to level to level. Now, from a metaphysical standpoint, my mind works a little differently, and I started to read into things that I should not have read into. I should have just paid attention to the world that Jae was creating. When she talked about the colors, I went to this concept of the seven rays. It's not at all like that. The colors are actual personality feelings that
Hmm.
the characters have. And when they go from level to level, if they make a mistake, there is a goddess who will send them back a level. And at first, I didn't understand what that meant. And then I started to realize this is a video game. When you started to write the Faraday Clan, is that what you had in mind? A video?
No,
So that just evolved?
but see, I wrote it from Raven's and Scott's point of view, and then later their children. I don't look at it like that. I am in their head. I am writing what they are experiencing, and it doesn't register to me until after I've read it, and after my editor tells me this or that or the other. Then I know, oh yeah, this is what I did. Because until that moment, I don't know. I'm in the moment.
I remember seeing an interview a while back on a show called Briggs on Books, where you said you lived like a vampire. Tell us about that.
I'm usually up until about 5:30 in the morning, and I get my best writing done when everybody in the house is asleep. And then I go to bed and I don't get up until probably 1 in the afternoon. My schedule is set to my husky, so he gets his medicine at 5:30 and then he gets his medicine at 1 p.m. and in there somewhere I can sleep.
If I recall, your dogs are Liam and Porthos,
Yes,
and Liam is the one that needs his medicine.
yes.
I know when we've been on the phone, I've heard one of them barking. I'm not sure which one that is.
That would be Liam. He
Okay.
talks. He's a husky. He talks.
I was going to say when I saw a photo of me, he looked like a wolf. And I'm not going to spoil things for anyone who's going to read the Fire Ridge series, but all I'll say is this: look closely at the cover. It's not just about the good-looking guy on the cover. Anyway, that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but you have an incredible mind, but you do have an incredibly good memory. That's something that just amazes me. So, Jay, if you were to choose, and it doesn't have to be mine, but if you were to choose a song to end this episode, because as you know, Indie Tea always ends an episode with one of my guests' songs. Like I said, doesn't have to be mine. Is there any particular indie artists out there that you favor, that you've heard me talk about, or who's been a guest on the show that we can play?
Like I can see her face in my head. We were just talking about her,
Her.
and she has the band.
Oh,
We were just
KTO,
talking.
Lizzie?
Yes, Lizzie. I
Oh,
can see
okay.
her face in my head, but I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry.
The one that said I'm a cerebral interviewer. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we'll play one of Lizzie's songs. Well, actually, the band is KTO, Kathleen Turner Overdrive. And right now, you are starting to hear a different song since the last time when I interviewed them, we played Unseen. Well, I happen to know they have a lot more on their plate than that. In fact, so I will choose something which we're hearing right now. Jay, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with me here on Indie Tea, a very special episode, our first indie author who we've had. Check out her books. It's Jaegreyn. Jae Greyn. Available worldwide. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
I don't wanna say that I'm a robot girl.